You've read the title, so let's hop right into it. Once again, this will have spoilers for all scenarios of Witch's Heart, the bonus stage, and Sirius's conclusion. Anyways, without further ado, let's overanalyze Ashe's scenario of Witch's Heart. Okay, I lied. First, I'm gonna go over some stuff that comes before the scenario select, but after you refuse to trade rooms with Ashe. So first up, Zizel's introduction. It's very interesting. She's far from outright rude or anything, but you can still glean a slight air of superiority from her. She's mostly very formal and let's get down to business-y, which makes sense because as of right now, she and Claire are merely partners in a contract and nothing more. Replaying this part, I'm already looking forward to seeing the two bond and grow closer and come to enjoy each other's company throughout the game. Also, I find it amusing that she chose to introduce herself by making this huge demon circle teleportation beam thing. Like, she doesn't need all those visuals at all to simply teleport, but it's definitely fun and confirms her otherworldliness. Zizel also says that, unless that pact is terminated, I can't return home. This line always confused me because her home is simply hell, right? And she goes back to hell all the time, so she's literally just lying. I suppose she's just trying to create a sense of urgency though, to get Claire to return the contract sooner. This does beg the question though, why does Zizel want Claire to return the contract? I mean, we later learn why it would benefit Claire to find and return the contract, but later in the credits, it explicitly says that the contract never really mattered to the demons in the first place. Her little smirk as she says, "do your best to find it," also feels like she's almost messing with Claire a bit. I could definitely see that being at least part of it, that she's enjoying sending Claire on a wild goose chase. This could also be her way of shaking things up a bit time loop-wise. There's no way to know for certain how many time loops have passed by the time Zizel introduces herself to Claire, but if we assume that Claire had already died a significant number of times, then it would make sense that Zizel would want to step in and give Claire a slight edge in the situation. After all, the demons had said it themselves that Claire dying over and over again was starting to get a bit monotonous. You could think of Zizel pushing Claire to find the contract as like a beta version of the demons' involvement in bonus stage. But yeah, I'd like to hear y'all's thoughts on why Zizel asks Claire to find and return the contract, because I don't think it's ever outright explained or anything, and it can definitely be an interesting point of discussion and speculation. "Just looking at your outfit makes me shiver" is such a mom thing to say. What a mom's boy. Upon chatting with Ashe before bed, he half-jokingly suggests that once he returns home, perhaps he should self-publish a book about his experience in this paranormal mansion. This is pretty clever foreshadowing to the very end of this game, at the end of Noel's scenario. The epilogue of that route is told through the writings of a certain traveler, of course meant to be Ashe. Thanks to the book On the Ecology of Demons, we're provided with a world map displaying where there's strong magical energy, and thus demons. We can safely assume that the mansion is in one of these magical areas, and we also know that this map is just upside down Europe. So with this knowledge, someone has actually estimated the equivalent real-life location of Dorothy's mansion. It has very solid reasoning, and I'll provide a link in the description to the Google Slides. So in other words, Sirius has been fucking doxed. This CG is so cute, I love it so much. Claire is just so wholesome and I love her. Anyways, so we know that Ashe and Wilardo each need specific bits of information in order to deduce that Claire has the Witch's Heart and that they can grant their wish by killing her. These bits of information are as follows. First, they need to read the two books in Sirius's bedroom to learn about the existence of demons and demonic pacts. Then, they need to read one of the books in Sirius's back room to learn that a human in a demonic pact will have the wish-granting jewel embedded in their body. Lastly, they need to read the contract to learn that Claire is in one of these demonic pacts and that her jewel is made from her heart. As for Claire's old diary, I don't believe that it's wholly necessary to figuring out that Claire possesses the Witch's Heart, but I suppose that the photograph within more or less confirms that the contract isn't referring to some other Dorothy and some other Claire Elford. Anyways, I bring this all up because I'll be pointing out the moments in each scenario and the bonus stage when Ashe and/or Wilardo each learn these critical bits of information. And well, since the two books in Sirius's bedroom are easily accessible to anyone, we can assume that Wilardo and Ashe read these on the first day. At least, it's already confirmed for Ashe from his little one-liner before sleeping on day one, and we can just extend that to Wilardo. The future ones will be more interesting for sure though. Noel says that, "I'll suppose it'll start again, in this very place." And the event that he's referring to is, of course, the scramble for the Witch's Heart. 12 years ago, Nicholas was willing to kill for Dorothy's heart, and now Wilardo and Ashe are willing to kill for Claire's. It's gooey monster translation time! This time, Noel is just saying, "Claire?" and then Claire scuttles off. In the opening MV, I thought it'd be fun to find the scenes where all the characters' quotes are from, so here they are. Ash's quote is from day 4 of Wilardo's scenario, right before Sirius and Ash go to sleep, and Sirius's quote is from the same conversation. Wilardo's is during day 2 of his scenario after talking to him in his room. Noelle's is from day 2 of his scenario, where Claire and him are looking at the stars together. Claire's is from day 4 of Ash's scenario, right before Sirius's corpse is discovered. Zizelle's is before scenario select during her introduction. Charlotte's is from day 3 of Ash's scenario, after the failed witch summoning ritual. And finally, Lime's is from her introduction, which, depending on which scenario you play second, can happen in either Ash's or Wilardo's scenario. Also, a nice little touch in the opening MV is that near the end of it, when it shows the main 4 guys in a circle, each of them have a weird, uncanny smile on their face except for Noelle, who's frowning. Alright, now onto Ash's scenario for real. As a lot of you probably know, you can put wine in your pretty bottle and it can heal HP and MP, but only if your player character decides to drink it. So here's a comprehensive list of who will and will not drink wine. Claire, Wilardo, and Sirius will all drink wine, while Ash and Noelle won't. It's been confirmed that Noelle won't drink alcohol in general because he's extremely lightweight. As for Ash, although his alcohol tolerance is greater than Noelle's, it's still weaker than the other humans. Of course, there are multiple times in the games that Ash partakes in some drinking, so he doesn't strictly forbid it for himself, but during these times he's shown to get flushed and also a little tipsy. Thus, it makes sense that he won't drink while being controlled by the player, as he wouldn't let himself get distracted by getting tipsy at just any random point in the day. Ash saying, now, everyone's deepest wishes are going to be selfish and greedy, is pretty interesting to me. Maybe this is him merely trying to coax Claire's wish out of her to get more information on her, but I can't help but connect this line to Ash's own wish as well. From the bonus stage, it's clear that Ash isn't just a cold-hearted murderer that feels zero guilt for his actions. He's had to deliberately close off his heart to have done what he's done, and he's acutely aware of how insane he seems. This is even evidenced as early on as this scenario, where after he murders Sirius, he's seen coughing and hacking into the sink, the mental strain of his actions taking a physical toll on him. In a nutshell, he has a pretty negative view of himself. He views his wish, and himself by extension, as selfish and greedy. Ironically enough though, despite his selfish and greedy wish, it's also too positive for the demons to grant it. It's interesting. Side note, but I love absolutely fucking up the cooking when it's Claire's time to prepare food. Everyone's reactions are so funny. I really enjoy this back and forth between Ash and Wilardo. It's also pretty much the first implication that we get that there's more to Ash than he appears, and it also sets up the two's rivalry that pretty much continues on for the whole game. On repeat playthroughs, you'll probably end up noticing how Ash is really nosy and digs for information like all the time, so I shall keep a counter now. Anyways, counter +1 for Ash asking Sirius about the books in the back room, and then counter +1 again for Ash asking Sirius about what he and Noelle spoke about regarding the witch Dorothy on day 1. I'm busy gazing into the middle distance. What the fuck does that mean? Fun fact, there's extra dialogue from this little dude if you try to take back his firefly after giving him one. Sorry man. And same with this ghost here too. This interaction between Zizelle and Claire splashing water on each other is very endearing. I think this is one of the first instances of Zizelle and Claire bonding, and even starting to act more like friends rather than just contract partners. Another thing I like is Charlotte's reappearance. It's cool to establish that even if Zizelle and Charlotte are both demons, they aren't exactly on the same side, and don't exactly have the same goals as each other. In bonus stage, players learn that Ash will refuse to eat anybody else's food if he cannot either 1. Be there to watch them make it, or 2. Watch someone else eat the food first, as he's paranoid about being poisoned. In repeat playthroughs, you'll notice that there's multiple examples of him turning down other people's food or offering to cook instead. And this scene in Ash's scenario is the first of them. I'll point them out and also keep a counter from here on out. This little transition CG makes me laugh, the way his plate just has a singular piece of bread on it. This newspaper article about the mansion massacre recounts what Dorothy said before she died. However, if you watch the scene from bonus stage, she doesn't actually begin her speech with "you foolish humans." By the way, this article is dated June 16th, so we can assume that the massacre itself took place either earlier that day or like 1 to 3 days before June 16th, give or take. You know what else is a few days before June 16th? That's right, Sirius's birthday, June 13th. It just adds another layer of depression to the already depressing situation. Birthdays are, of course, supposed to be a happy time for the birthday person, but for Sirius, his birthday ends up coinciding with the anniversary of his beloved guardian's death. How fucked up. Ash expresses confusion on the mansion seemingly no longer belonging to Dorothy. However, shouldn't he, and Claire maybe, have noticed that the grave outside is designated toward Dorothy? I suppose he does buy into the fact that Dorothy is a witch though, and thus has possibly reasoned that the grave is meant to be a red herring, but it's still something of note. Wilardo's reaction to both Noelle and Ash missing being, well, whatever, is so funny. Also, here we learn that Ash was hiding in Noelle's room while Wilardo was searching through it looking for Noelle. We can safely assume that he was hiding in the cellar area underneath the room, and judging from his expression, we can also safely assume that he has found the contract in the cellar and now knows that Claire is in a demonic pact. Now, all he needs are the books from Sirius's backroom to know that the witch's heart can be found embedded in Claire's body. This doesn't really count toward the Ash food counter thing, considering it's an optional scene, but if you fuck up cooking the curry as Claire, Ash offers to cook for everyone instead. Ash telling Sirius that he doesn't have to join in on the ghost stories, and Sirius replying with, "Excuse me, I said nothing of the sort," is such a nice little glimpse into Sirius's other personality traits besides just ill people. Also just super endearing, honestly. Also, we later learn that this whole ghost storytelling thing is a ritual to summon the witch, and that it requires 5 people. So Ash telling Sirius that it's not mandatory to take part makes me wonder what he would have done if any one of them did indeed refuse to join in, since he'd be short a person. I suppose he wouldn't have bothered with all the theatrics of red ribbons and knocking on the table, and it would have just turned into a regular ghost story session. Fun fact, apparently the connection to SCP was totally unintentional on IZ's part. In fact, the acronym was originally SKP, as the way that you romanize cake in Japanese is keiki, with a K instead of a C. However, during development, someone notified them that it should be SCP instead. And so, Claire and Ash have coincidentally become anomalies that we shall secure, contain, and protect. Usually, whenever you come across a book in a foreign language as either Wilardo, Noelle, or Claire, they simply think to themselves about how they can't read it. In contrast, while controlling either Ash or Sirius, the book is, of course, simply read out. However, there's randomly one bookshelf in the entrance hall that doesn't follow this pattern. Instead, all the characters react out loud to the foreign book with their sprites appearing and everything. Well, all of them except for Claire. Her sprite doesn't appear, and she just thinks they're complicated-looking books. Really random. It's absolutely genius of Ash to team up with Claire to help him find the witch's heart. It allows him to essentially ask the others up front about their knowledge of the witch's heart without painting a large target on his back, as Claire's with him too. This is something that most people probably missed, as there's like zero reason to do this on your first playthrough, but if you examine the piano in Claire's room while Ash is in your party, there will actually be some bonus dialogue. Another thing you can do with Ash in your party is fulfill this one demon request that involves a demon in the mirror. For this demon, you need to have someone else in the party alongside Claire, so the chances to fulfill this request are definitely scarce. Some pretty implicative wording here from Ash, when he says, "So give it your all, if that wish is one you want granted, no matter what." I honestly do not understand what Giselle means when she says, from the proper perspective, it exists. Because, doesn't the witch's heart really genuinely exist? Regardless of any perspective from which you look at it. These dolls are ugly as fuck. To be honest, I don't fully understand the significance of Noelle's horror story. Of course, it does make him being fucking dragged to hell in the ending less out of nowhere, but that's really the only connection that I can think of. Also, him saying goodnight after his story kinda makes me laugh, cause it just sounds like he's just leaving after his story. Yeah, here's this disturbing story about hanging yourself and going directly to hell. Sometimes you can even encounter these trees in your dreams. Okay, bye guys, good night, sleep well. I love the whole Cinderella story scene so much, from Sirius getting super into the story and telling Ash to stop with the spoilers to fucking Cinderella, and everyone clapping at the end of the story. It's all so perfect and the humor is on point. Also, Sirius's red ribbon sprites are inconsistent during this scene. I think it's a nice touch that Wilardo would put the doll in his chair after getting up. After all, Wilardo knows firsthand that curses are real and aren't to be taken lightly, so it makes sense that even if he doesn't completely trust what Ash has been saying, he wouldn't take a chance on messing up this weird ritual thing and potentially getting cursed. Again. Furthermore, Noelle is the other one, besides Ash, that makes sure to place the doll in his seat, and like Wilardo, he's also cursed. And of course, it's very sweet that he puts Claire's doll on her chair. Also, it makes it somewhat comedic that when Sirius shouts, "I hope you all get cursed and die," 2 out of the 4 people it's directed to are already cursed. And also incapable of dying, for that matter. I think this is a thing that a lot of people caught while playing, but one of the rules for the ritual was that you could not take off your red ribbon until the lights came back on. This one rule was particularly stressed even. However, Ash himself tells people to remove their red ribbons before turning the lights back on. I doubt he would merely forget, so I assume that this is because the witch failed to appear, so he thinks the ritual already failed and there's no need to keep up with its rules. This scene is just so sweet. Claire saying, "Let's get yelled at together," to Noelle about Sirius is just so... I love them, I love the childhood trio. A nice touch here is that Noelle politely calls Dorothy Miss Dorothy, and not just the witch, or just Dorothy with no title. So, Sirius is dead, which means that Ash got access to his back room, so from this point forward, he now knows that in order to get the witch's heart, he must kill Claire. It's interesting how Giselle sometimes feels like an ally to Claire, such as protecting her from Charlotte's antics, and yet other times, she clearly enjoys messing with her and refuses to help, such as giggling at her being mocked and surrounded by demons, and also constantly telling her to figure out things herself. She's a very interesting character, and she keeps you on your toes. Man, Claire telling Ash that his family's waiting for his return. Claire shares with Ash that she discovered a diary that apparently belonged to her when she was young, despite not remembering anything about it, and Ash, in response, asks if he can read through the diary. +1 to the Ash nosy points. Upon seeing Noelle suddenly appear in the hallway, you actually don't have to interact with him and can go into his room, which will be empty. However, upon talking to Noelle and triggering the scene, Wilardo will walk out of Noelle's room. I doubt this is evidence of him finding the secret room or anything. Almost certainly, it's just a minor oversight that hardly anyone will come across. This Noelle sprite looks so damn good, it's such a shame that it appears pretty sparsely throughout the games. Okay, I might be reading too much into this, but it feels like this ... from Wilardo is less in response to Noelle saying that he's locking himself in his room because he doesn't want to die, and more in response to Ash saying, "You must be the killer, surely," to Noelle. I feel like at this point, Wilardo is probably picking up on the fact that Ash is trying unnaturally hard to push suspicion onto Noelle. Also, I don't know why Ash says how arbitrary here. Like, Noelle locking himself in his room was not an arbitrary thing to do. In fact, he spelled out his reasoning very clearly and it made a lot of sense. Anyways, I'll stop nitpicking. Instance number 2 of Ash refusing food from another character. People meme on Noelle for failing to save Claire even once after 9,999 times, and I agree it's kind of fun to call him dumb, but I do actually think he was really smart here. He knew that he was gonna transform into a fleshy monster upon sunrise and that he wouldn't be able to hide from the others as they were keeping watch of his room. He also knew that it would appear to the others that he was murdered by said fleshy monster. Using this, he could appear strangely and almost impossibly knowledgeable of future events, making Claire more inclined to heed his warning that she'll be killed somehow, and therefore making her more cautious of the others. Good job, Noelle. So why does Noelle suspect Wilardo, Wilardo suspect Ash, and Ash suspect Noelle? As a side note, I like the suspense of the 3 remaining characters each suspecting one another, but anyways. The game doesn't really go too in-depth with why these characters are suspecting each other, besides Ash. They kinda just drop ominous one-liners and leave it at that, so let's discuss. First is Noelle because he seems the most random. Okay, I say it seems random, but I think it's just because Wilardo is an unfriendly guy with a gun, lol. I mean, yeah, Sirius didn't die to a gunshot wound, but a man packing heat instantly makes him seem more dangerous and inclined to violence than most people. Noelle really only has 2 people to suspect here, and in his eyes, Ash is just a friendly guy whose demeanor even reminds him of Claire, so him suspecting Wilardo makes sense. Additionally, maybe he just wouldn't want to believe that a person similar to Claire could ever murder someone. Now, Wilardo suspecting Ash makes sense since this dude is always onto Ash's antics like way before anyone else in most routes. He's just very observant of others in general, examples of which I will definitely point out as they appear because I love Wilardo. Furthermore, Wilardo is just also aware that Ash carries a knife on him, as Ash reveals as much in the prologue. As for Ash, well, he is the murderer, so it only makes sense that Ash would point fingers at the easiest scapegoat, which would be the guy who's been absent all day supposedly sleeping, and also has potential connections with Mayor Nicholas. So yeah. In contrast to Noelle being really smart earlier, Claire is kinda dumb for straight up asking Ash if he's hiding something. Like, what the hell, man? I mean, I guess that's just Claire's style, being very straightforward with people. I can't hold it against her, I love her too much. Something that becomes very noticeable on repeat playthroughs is the lengths that IZ goes to hint at Noelle being a demon. Like, IZ will make you go to a random room in the mansion just to discover that demons have started appearing, and then will make you return to the guest hallway to discover that Noelle has appeared as well. And in this scene, IZ makes you interact with this random-ass demon that wails about the night ending and the sun rising, just so you know that it's morning, right before the scene where Noelle turns into the flesh monster and escapes out the window. This isn't a complaint or anything, by the way. I think it's very neat, especially considering how I didn't pick up on these hints at all in my first playthrough. GUI monster translation time! Just kidding, he just says absolute nonsense this time. Well, technically he's just saying ga 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 over and over again in the original Japanese, and then gua in the translation, which is, talk your shit, king. Also, Monster Noel glooping out of the mansion by falling out the window implies that the mansion is floating above hell, or at least that falling into the void somehow transports you to hell, which is interesting. This is also consistent from when you gain control of Noel after night falls in multiple instances, as he's seen standing right in front of the window as if he had just entered from it. However, there is one instance that deviates from this, and it's the epilogue to Wilardo's scenario. Here, it appears that Noel spawns in the back of Sirius's room. He can't have entered it from the normal doorway, because in that case, he definitely would have stumbled across Ash's body before Sirius's, but in the scene, after leaving the back room, he's clearly surprised at seeing Ash on the floor. So yeah, apparently this one time he chose to appear in Sirius's back room instead of in the guest hallway like normal. I guess this still makes sense though, because there is a demonic portal to hell hidden behind the Dorothy portrait, so I suppose that makes two paths to hell. Right after Wilardo discovers Noel's remains, you can hear the shing of a knife being unsheathed. This is, of course, the moment before Ash attacks Wilardo. A nice little touch is that Zizel's flames in this scene create the outline of a skull. This is what happens when you trust easily. Definitely comes from the fact that Ash was betrayed by one of his closest friends. Poor guy. In the credits, it says that Wilardo was stabbed by Ash in the green room, when it should probably say that he was stabbed in the purple room instead. I checked the Japanese version of the game and it correctly says purple room there, so it appears to be merely a translation error rather than, say, an implication that Wilardo was originally going to be killed in some different way. I like the fact that the credits include how the demons felt about the scenario themselves. It really drives home the fact that these scenarios are pretty much just entertainment for them, so much that it's like they're giving reviews for each quote-unquote episode. It's interesting that Noel's corpse dissipates after a while. I assume that it just, like, leaves the mansion, like how the other demons leave the mansion during the day, and then it rejoins the rest of his body in hell, I suppose. But yeah, it's a nice touch that hints at something otherworldly going on with his body. Also, I love how Wilardo is like fucking ready for round 2 with Ash, saying shit like, "You thought you finished me?" His disdain for Ash is so apparent, and I do love that for him. On to Charlotte's memories. Charlotte's memories are from almost 600 years ago and take place during a pandemic hinted to be the bubonic plague. However, according to this CG, tanks were also a thing during that time, I guess. Obviously, this isn't our Earth, so it doesn't have to make sense, but it's something silly to think about. Zizel saying, "I was watching," makes it sound like Charlotte's death was right before she came to this hell, but it's then clarified almost immediately that Charlotte has already been dead for a long time, which means that there's a delay between a person dying and becoming a hater demon. There doesn't seem to be any particular reason for this delay, but I figured I'd mention it, since I had just assumed that qualified humans became hater demons almost instantly upon death. I always loved this line. Charlotte, upon hearing that her papa is dead, wonders where she's supposed to direct this feeling. This feeling referring to her burning hatred for the man who used and betrayed her, the very same hatred that caused her to become a hater demon. It's so chilling. Overall thoughts and rambling time. Do I love Ash's scenario? Hell yeah I do, but I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It's my least favorite scenario out of the 4. The other 3 are actually all tied for my favorite. I can't say I find anything really wrong with it though. I mean, I've definitely heard from others that the pacing in Ash's and Wilardo's scenarios is kinda bad, but personally, I never really noticed that kind of thing. However, something that Ash's scenario does amazingly is setting up all the mysteries in the mansion. Too bad you'll have to die knowing nothing. That applies so well to Ash's scenario with all the unanswered questions, and that's a great thing. Why does Ash seek the witch's heart? Why does Wilardo? How did Ash figure out that Claire has the witch's heart? Why is Claire in a demonic pact in the first place? Why did Ash kill Sirius? Why are all these demon books in Sirius's room if he doesn't believe in that stuff? Why did Charlotte say that this time she'll be taking victory? How the fuck did Noel know that he and Claire were gonna die? I could go on for so long about all the mysteries that Ash's scenario introduces. Sometimes when video games, right off the bat, overwhelm the player with too many questions and unexplained happenings, I just can't enjoy it because I don't like feeling lost all the time. However, Witch's Heart hits a very good balance where even if there's a lot to be explained in the future, it doesn't sacrifice the present experience. I'm intrigued and want to learn more about these characters and find the answers to all these questions, not just for the sake of knowing and being a little detective, but because I already care about these characters in the first place. Or maybe none of that makes sense, I don't know. Anyways, I was worried about not being able to write enough for this video, but luckily there was a lot more to write about than expected. I am actually really excited to continue on to my analyses of the future scenarios and games, so yeah. Again, thanks for watching this far. I appreciate it super much. See you for Wilardo's scenario.